You can use the gavel if you want, because that is, yeah, feel the power, Cecily. Go for it, Cecily.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the November 3rd Met Council Park and Open Space Commission meeting. Welcome commissioners, staff, and I don't think we have any guests.
We do have
We do have guests?
agencies.
Well, our implementing partners.
Oh, yeah,
Good
sorry.
afternoon, council member. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at Cecily Harris. I'm chairing the meeting as Tony Russo is unable to attend this evening. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Any changes?
Nope.
Staff? Anybody else? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
We don't actually need a motion.
Oh, we don't
on the
need it?
agenda,
Oh,
just
that's
a
right.
consensus with no
Well, we've got a
changes.
consensus, I believe.
Okay.
All right, then we have the October 6, 2022 minutes. Any comments or questions, or can I get a motion?
I made a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Dillenberg, second by Commissioner Heichel. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Great. And now for public invitation, did we receive any comments from the general public or questions?
We did not.
We did not. Okay. Now we're ready for our business items. Looks like first up is French Regional Park Master Plan, a Three Rivers Park District project. Good afternoon, Chee.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hello, Chair, Commissioners, and Council Member. My name is Chee, and I'm a planner at the Council. Today I'm here to present the French Regional Park Master Plan on behalf of Three Rivers Park District. With me is Anne Rexine, and she will be able to help answer questions at the end. She's the project manager for this master plan and from the Park District. Alright. French Regional Park is a 310-acre park located in the northwest part of the regional park system and central Hennepin County. The regional park is located within the city of Plymouth along the north shore of Madison Lake. The regional park's acquisition and development plan was completed in the 1980s. Based on the Park District's 2040 system plan, French Regional Park is considered fully developed with natural areas. This allows visitors to transition into nature as their comfort level increases. The images on the slide are figures 1, 2, and 3 from this slide. Now I'm going to dive into the engagement efforts for French Regional Park, beginning with the partner engagement with city and organizations. Then I will go into the public engagement and the equity analysis. The Park District's engagement efforts were geographically focused on the service area to gather input from those who would most likely benefit or use French Regional Park. Based on the Park District's recreation opportunity spectrum, the ideal primary service area is within a 15-minute drive time. Therefore, the Park District's engagement efforts generally focus on reaching and engaging residents and partner agencies located within the service area. The Park District followed a 4-phase engagement plan to intentionally connect with the general public, park users, underrepresented community members, and cities and organizations. Phase 1 focused on gathering data and information, establishing internal and external relationships, and introducing the project to various work groups who provided background information and guidance. Phase 2 focused on engaging and receiving feedback from the partner agencies, organizations, the general public, existing park users, and underrepresented groups. Phase 3 focused on re-engaging the identified groups for additional feedback on preliminary park plan concepts. Phase 4 focused on obtaining feedback from the identified groups and kept them informed of decisions and how their feedback was considered during the process. The Park District engaged the cities of Plymouth, New Hope, Crystal, Robbinsdale, Golden Valley, St. Louis Park, and Minnetonka. Engaged organizations include Plymouth Historical Society, the Association of Madison Lake, and Association of Madison Lake Area Citizens. General themes from the partner engagement include improving Madison Lake water quality and water access, promoting regional park awareness, improving signage and wayfinding, improving trail surfacing, providing manufactured snow, and incorporating a variety of outdoor experiences. Next is the public engagement. The Park District engaged the general public, existing park users, and underrepresented groups in Phase 2. The engagement focused on gathering information around introductory programs from the public, how they are provided, and how they're envisioned and supported in French Regional Park. I'll discuss the engagement efforts with underrepresented groups in the next slide. The general public represents the full range of existing and potential park users, such as people of all ages, abilities, races, ethnicities, and income levels, who generally live or spend time within the defined service area. The engagement efforts with the general public focus on increasing awareness, understanding barriers, and obtaining more broad general feedback on preferences and recommendations. The engagement efforts included robust in-person and virtual feedback through surveys, pop-ups, community events, listening sessions, and programming while being mindful of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Park District participated in several engagement opportunities, such as the Let's Talk online survey, pop-up popsicles in the park, Golden Valley Farmers Market, Maps and Mazes event, pop-up palooza table, and virtual family campout. Through these engagement efforts, the Park District estimates it engaged 1,155 people. General themes from the public engagement include an interest and desire to participate in existing park programs such as nature play and exploration, nature education, summer fishing, picnicking, and snowshoeing, build awareness for programming and recreational activities, a need for different, new, and relevant programming, provide more program information, special planned events, walking trails, food and drink amenities, and nature play elements. Provide opportunities to enjoy nature and the outdoors, to continue to provide water recreation opportunities such as kayaking, canoeing, and stand-up paddleboarding. Promote regional park programs and offerings that are age and culturally appropriate, offer flexible schedules, and are both instructor-led and self-led. Minor updates and improvements to regional park facilities such as buildings, parking lots, trails, beach and lakefront, signage and wayfinding, play areas and picnic and reservation areas. And finally, a familiarity and appreciation of French Regional Park. As mentioned, in Phase 2, the Park District engaged the underrepresented community members and groups. French Regional Park visitors are more racially and ethnically diverse in the park service area population and compared to the other parks within the Park District system. According to the Park District's 2018 Park Visitor Study, the existing park users generally reflect the broader community composition in the areas of age and gender, or are more diverse than the service area population in areas of race and ethnicity. The Park District defines underrepresented community members and groups as those who are not visiting the park to the extent which is expected given their percentage of the overall population within the service area, and have not traditionally participated in park and trail planning processes. The Park District identified the following groups as underrepresented in French Regional Park service area: people 75 years or older, white and non-Hispanic adults, households with an annual income of $50,000 or less. When compared to the system-wide visitor data, French Regional Park depicts a slightly different narrative than other parks and trails within the Park District. Due to the French Regional Park's location near first-tier communities, it is often one of the first touch points to the Park District system. As the visitor data suggests, French Regional Park currently serves people of color and those who identify as Hispanic at a percentage which is consistent or greater than what is expected given the surface area demographics. The Park District programming at French Regional Park, which focuses on the new Try It, Learn It model, the visitor experience model does not appear to yet serve or draw from these targeted community groups to the extent expected given their percentage of the service population, including youths. The engagement scope focused on the identifying pragmatic components that would increase the safety and inclusion of the underrepresented groups, since their participation in programs does not mirror their visitation in the park. The engagement efforts of the underrepresented groups focus primarily on building awareness, understanding barriers, and identifying programs that would encourage park exploration. The Park District engaged underrepresented community members and groups at various events and locations, including the Hispanic Heritage Celebration, Stone Creek Apartment, virtual family campout, teen welcoming winter's event, senior donut talk, senior Nordic walkers, and Let's Talk online survey. Through these engagement efforts, the Park District estimates it engaged 336 people. General themes from the underrepresented members and groups include having open and natural spaces with opportunities for nature viewing, an escape from the city, provide outdoor and water-based recreation, have nature-based education and activities for youth and adults, providing ADA and smooth trail surfacing, include user-friendly signage and wayfinding, have shorter walking loops, and provide winter trail maintenance. Many of these themes are included in the park plan that reflect the needs and values of the underrepresented community members or groups who participated in the engagement process. Examples include ADA design standards, open and picnic spaces, nature and outdoor recreation and programs, and signage and wayfinding. The park plan is intended to be a starting point for improvements for the regional park and will continue to be inclusive and responsive of changing needs and priorities. This is the Park District's commitment to its partners and the community. Now I'll go over the development concept for the French Regional Park. The park plan identifies ways to improve park user experience by highlighting unique park features while minimizing overall park development. The guiding principle for the park's development is to preserve treasured areas such as the creative play area, beach and trail network while expanding opportunities for visitors to try new activities. Recommended improvements are based on the park's long-term vision and will be implemented based on available funding and the Park District's priorities. At the time of implementation, additional park features will be designed to minimize user conflicts, ensure safety, and limit overall impact. The Park District will continue to engage with park users during the design development phase. The French Regional Park development concept is based on 3 overarching goals. Goal 1 is to better serve the people in the French Regional Park service area. The Park District plans to deliver introductory programming, education, and recreational offerings to grow and enhance those that may be unaware, curious, and/or new to activities offered. Community engagement and feedback received from those that were unfamiliar with the park and/or had never participated in a program strongly support nature-based program participation. Goal 2 is to make French Regional Park better. The Park District is to prioritize the protection, restoration, and management of natural and cultural resources. Community outreach indicated strong support for resource protection, restoration, and management through a strong appreciation for the park's existing trail woodland network and Medicine Lake access, which allows users to experience nature year-round through land and water-based recreation. The last goal is to have French Regional Park lead by example. The Park District will analyze existing park infrastructure and make recommendations for renovation and modification. Community outreach indicated resounding support for park infrastructure updates. Existing and prospective park visitors were most interested in ensuring the park was refreshed for people of all ages and abilities. The proposed park improvements include update and add park signage and wayfinding, and soften the park entrance, maintain paved and unpaved trails, update picnic areas including adding ADA accessible picnic spaces, rejuvenate the Medicine Lake beach area by providing additional shade, opportunities for year-round use, comfortable seating to socialize, relax, and view the lake, improving swimming experiences and fishing areas, and providing additional short-term parking. Remodel and modify the visitor center to create a welcoming experience, bring awareness and increase nature exploration, and provide winter enhancements such as continuing to groom cross-country ski trails and providing winter recreations. The total estimated improvement cost for French Regional Park is approximately $2.8 million. Once all improvements are completed, the total annual operation and maintenance cost is approximately $2 million. Altogether, the total estimated cost is approximately $4.9 million. The rationale for the proposed action for French Regional Park is that it is consistent with the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, Planning Strategy 1, and other council policies. For the proposed action, we asked the Metropolitan Council to approve Three Rivers Park District's French Regional Park Master Plan. And with that, it concludes the presentation. Now I'll welcome any questions, comments that you may have. A reminder that the Park District staff are here to help answer questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chee. And please, everyone, what questions do you have?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is about the IAP2 spectrum. I'm looking at the engagement and I see that it says the plan followed a 4-phase process directly correlated with the IAP2 and business item on page 11. And I'm wondering what the maximum level of engagement was. It looks like nothing exceeded involving. If there were collaborative elements or empowering elements, I'd be interested in knowing more about that.
Yeah. So, let's see. So phase 3 was the consult and collaborate phase of the IEP 2. Not sure.
I think Gabe's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Have a
Hi,
seat.
Chair and Commissioners. I think your question regarding the figure 7 of the IEP 2 on page 10.
Well, that's it's not provided in the business item.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have
Okay.
figure 7, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. In the draft form of the French Regional Park Master Plan, we do generally follow that IEP 2 spectrum. But we've used our own inputs as to how and where we use it. So specifically, collaboration took place in phases 1 and 3. So during our project kickoff and context gathering, we were collaborating with lots of our agency partners and public to gather feedback. And then again, we went back, we did an extra step for our public review, which we hadn't typically done in the past, but we wanted to make sure that we got the recommendations right. And so after we came out with our preliminary design recommendations and the development concept that she went through, we went back to the public after that and said, did we get it right? Are we hearing what you're hearing? And we made some tweaks, slight minor tweaks, but we did make a few tweaks. And so, yeah, so hopefully that better answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I have more questions if I may.
Please continue.
I was interested in the natural resources section. There's discussion about improving the goose harassment. And I'm wondering what sort of innovations you're coming up with to deal with those unruly residents.
The Park District historically has had our natural resources department manage geese within the park as well as other wildlife within the park as well. So they've used different techniques in the past. Most recently, there's some innovative design techniques that can be instituted where we develop buffer strips, which are like vegetated buffer strips, so that the geese don't have a direct line of sight from the lake water to the nice cut grass. So we're hoping through design interventions and small techniques, we can help minimize the level of geese populations that like to flock in that swimming area. And hopefully that would reduce some of the impacts that they have on the environment.
Oh, thank you. My last question is about your tribal acknowledgement. I'm curious what that looks like when you say authentic relationships, and to what extent is the original design for this area impacting the current natural resource restoration objectives?
Chair and Commissioners, I think I'll take the first question. It sounds like it's a two-part question.
Yeah.
So the Park District is really committed to growing those relationships with our native Dakota populations and community, and we're just at the starting points right now. So we're looking to grow that. We're looking to have authentic conversations and better understand what their interests are as far as the land acknowledgement. And so that's why it's a recommendation of this plan. So we wanted to give it time and space as we move forward and to better understand what their needs are. So, yeah. If you have any input as to what the council is looking for as we move forward, we're happy to take feedback.
Maybe if I can add on to that. Yeah, I also had a question when I read that, because often you hear about land acknowledgement statements, and you don't have the word statement in this. So I was curious whether, because again, some agencies or some nonprofits will have a statement and then they will have an action plan. And whether that action plan is, again, building relationships with Indigenous folks, you know, whether it's things like renaming or developing programs or giving back land. I mean, I've heard a whole slew of things, what happens in an action plan after a land acknowledgement. So you're starting with dialogues then? Is that-
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
Chair and Commissioners. I don't think we're there yet,
Okay,
and I think we want to be respectful and just take it slow. And so our starting point is a land acknowledgement, and what that might look like is yet to be determined. And so we want to make sure we do it right. So, yeah. So if you have any advice or feedback, we'd be happy to take that into consideration.
well, I'd love to hear Bob's comment, and then maybe I can hear what the council has.
And then we'll get
That's
to your
what the council thinks, and I don't know.
Okay.
Bob?
Madam Chair, and I like the fact that you're updating and improving overall the first ring park system that you've got there, French Park. One of the things that strikes me, I like the phrase, try it, learn it. Wherever that came from, I like it. Which led me to think about the ability of our broad population to swim. And I know when I was a kid, we all had to take YMCA swimming lessons,
Yep.
you know, for just general protection and the ability not to drown in this land of 10,000 lakes. I'm on the board of the Outward Bound School, and I'm aware that many of our students are afraid of the water and don't have swimming skills. So we have here a nice piece of, I'll call it infrastructure improvement. But the philosophy of learn it, try it, learn it, wherever it goes, leads me to believe you're also thinking about teaching and that kind of, could you speak to perhaps swimming lessons and swimming skills?
Sure, Chair and Commissioners. I don't have much to share on swimming lessons. I'm looking at Jonathan Blamey back here.
Sure.
Do you have anything to add on swimming lessons? I can certainly speak on the try it, learn it piece.
Hi, Jonathan Blaming, Three Rivers. We've had dialogues with Hennepin County in the past about trying to put together a swimming program, though typically you don't do those in lakes. You try to find partners with pools. And Hennepin County decided to branch off on their own and start arranging swimming lessons at pools and apartment complexes. That of course doesn't cover everybody because not all apartments have pools. The community pool system is pretty robust, though within our first ring suburbs. So we have not contemplated at this time actual swimming lessons in the lake.
Okay. I can understand that, and yet I would say that your try it, learn it speaks of philosophy of education. And if you're educating cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and so forth, I'd encourage you to continue thinking about are there things we could do to help people become more skillful in the water from a swimming standpoint.
I hear you loud and clear, and I agree that every single person should know how to swim.
Thank you.
In Minnesota especially.
Chair and Commissioners, I will add, But I think we have tried the swimming lesson approach at Lake Minnetonka Regional Park in the swim pond last summer. And so we are dabbling a little bit in our controlled swim ponds, which are in Elm Creek and at Lake Minnetonka.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yay for what you're doing. I think it's an important aspect of life, and I encourage it.
thank you.
Can I ask her name for the record?
Of course.
Anne Rexine,
Anne,
Rexine, R-E-X-I-N-E.
thank you.
And could I ask Emmett to talk about land acknowledgement in the council, and then I'll get back to you, Monica.
Thank you. Chair and Commissioners, great question about land acknowledgement. We actually have in our 2020 edition of the Regional Parks Policy Plan a statement that says, establish a land acknowledgement for the regional park system. And we've spoken to you about it, I know, but at a very high level. And we consulted with our Community Development Committee and heard specifically from our chair, Robert Lilligren, who's a tribal member, and former commissioner Atlas Ingebrigtsen. And their advice to us was to go slow. I mean, they're concerned about some of the performative aspects of land acknowledgement, that, what is it? Like, I think, Anne, you were suggesting you want to do it right and you want to move slowly, and that there's a real relationship development. So I'll just tell you that we are continuing to pursue this. We're working on this historical cultural study, and that is ongoing, and we are gonna dig into land acknowledgement. And when I saw land acknowledgement in the plan, I was really excited about that, and also interested in, we really need the agency's help as we move forward with this, because they're the actual owners and operators. And so I think it's an area that we should move forward together on, and we're committed to doing that. And the land, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Monica.
Thanks, Madam Chair. First of all, I love French Park. I know how much it had changed and the first time that I stepped on it and how it's looking now, and I'm excited how it's gonna look after. That's the reason. Can you please elaborate on how you think this could be an example for their other parks? Because I think it works great and it's proved that it serves a huge variety of communities. So how is that gonna work?
Thanks for the question, Chair and Commissioners. French Regional Park is unique in that it's positioned very close to our first-tier Hennepin County communities. And so its service area includes many of those, what we would consider underserved populations by physical Three Rivers facilities. And so it lends itself by its location to have visitorship from the first-tier communities. We think that a lot of these ideas are some of the seed ideas for the next step of master plan that we're doing currently, called our Parks to People Master Plan, which uses the idea of this bridging facility, the new category within Met Council, to take it to the next level and see how those bridging facilities can relate to folks within the first-tier communities. So I think you'll see a lot of these ideas planted. So it's the creating and piloting new seed programs that are try it, learn it samplers. We're hearing that through our engagement for this Parks to People plan. New ways of communicating with members of the public that aren't your typical. So it's building awareness, creating marketing materials in multiple languages besides English. You'll see that probably again in this next level of this Parks to People plan. So I think a lot of these ideas were probably started with this master plan, but they're only gonna grow, and you'll see that master plan here probably within the next year or two. So, yeah, it's exciting work.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Question. If I could go back to a previous question that I was asking. My second part of that original question was about, is there co-management in the future or an alignment of tribal resource objectives with natural resource restoration opportunities within the park? And do you see any place where that relationship can grow in regard to particularly foraging or culturally important plants?
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. We have a strong and developing relationship with the Mdewakanton community. And as we get to know them and they get to know us better, we'll actually find out what they think would be cool and what would be good and what would benefit their community and the larger community. I don't want to presuppose anything with regards to naming, foraging, land turn back or anything until we've had a chance to really have a solid relationship development with the Mdewakanton. We're working on a really cool project with them right now down in Scott County. And I believe over the next 2 years, the landing and some Shakopee land and some other land down there are trying to be strung together into a mega park all along the Minnesota River. And that's going to have a very strong historical and cultural component to it. I see that as the bridge that will help really solidify our relationship with them. So I can't give you any answers yet.
That's great. There's steps.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great future field trip.
Yeah.
Note to self.
Commissioner, or Ms. Chair, define foraging for me, if you would. I don't know exactly what that means in the context of what we're talking about.
Mushroom hunting, berry picking,
Okay.
things like that, maple syruping.
Tea products.
Huh?
Tea products.
Sure.
Birch or pine.
Okay.
And I have a question, it may be a repeat of what someone else asked earlier. In the staff, or the business item, it mentions the park being a suburban regional park, and it gives a definition of that. And I'd be curious what the other categories of regional park you have at Three Rivers. Is there an urban regional park or a wilderness regional park as opposed to a suburban?
Chair and Commissioners, yeah, so we, through our 2040 system plan that we adopted 2 years ago, took the recreation opportunity spectrum, that's a historic model, and we utilized it to fit our needs. And so we have parks to fit everyone's needs and desires within the system. So we have everything from a wilderness park, which we would consider, that would be a Crowhasset.
Okay.
So a park reserve that has the 80-20 split and not even close to the 20% developed. And then we would have another level of park reserve, which would be more like our Elm Creek Park Reserve, which is more closer to that 80-20 development split. And so as we move through that spectrum, suburban regional park falls right in the middle, and then we move closer and closer to urban, and then we hit our bridging facilities on the bookends. So we have the wilderness on one end and the bridging facilities on the other. And so French, in particular, falls kind of right in the middle of that spectrum.
If I may add to that too, and Ann actually did much of the work on modifying ROS. And I believe we even mentioned in the system plan, we see the benefit of using this sort of systems approach to classification at a much finer grain than the currently used regional park reserve. We don't have urban parks in our system by our own very nature. They are large natural resource-based parks. However, Minneapolis and St. Paul have great urban parks, and they're a hugely important part of the system.
Right.
And you treat those parks different than the suburban parks, and you treat the suburban parks different than you do our near wilderness, Murphy, Hanrahan, and Crowhasset. And we are very much open to the idea of sharing ROS in dialogue with the other 9 implementing agencies. And if necessary, redefining those categories so that there's agreement among the 10 agencies and the Metropolitan Council on a framework that we can all use together. So this was our sort of first offering of this concept and implementation. And I think it could be really something interesting, especially with regards to the bookends, the wilderness and the urban. I particularly like the wilderness part because by setting it up this way, you're trying to provide an undeveloped area for future generations. There's so much pressure to always put development in, especially amongst the local communities that are adjacent to undeveloped areas. You know, come on, play areas, trails, lights. If you have a framework and you've applied it regionally, that provides additional protections to the most undeveloped areas.
Great, thank you. Councilmember, you have questions? Are there other commissioner questions? All right, can I request a motion then?
I can make a motion.
Yeah, could we please put the motion, suggested motion back? Or I can read it, the proposed action, I mean.
I motion that the Metropolitan Council approve the Three Rivers Park District French Regional Park Master Plan.
Is there a second?
I'll
I second.
Wow, that was in unison. Who did you get first? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great, and we have Jessica presenting the Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund with Dakota County.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair, commissioners, and council members. My name is Jessica Lee. I'm a planner, park planner at the council.
Excuse me, Jessica, would you mind moving the mic closer to you, please?
Sure. Is that better? Does it even put it on?
It's largely for the internet.
Is it on?
It is on, and it's,
Perhaps you can speak up.
I'll try my best.
Jessica can project, I know that.
So I'm here to present business item 2022-285, Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund Award, McMenomy property for Dakota County. Well,
Let me try that for you.
did it work for you, Chee? It did, but I want to see.
I think that,
Frozen.
I only have a few slides. I could run up and change it.
I got it.
Thanks. Okay. So the Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail is located in the center of Dakota County and will connect Lebanon Hills to Whitetail Woods Regional Park and the Vermillion River Aquatic Management Area and Wildlife Area. Oh, that's working. The McMenomy property is located in the northern segment on the Vermillion River Greenway. The map on the left shows segment 1 of the regional trail, with the McMenomy property circled in red. Dakota County is proposing to purchase an easement on 5.72 acres of this property for the trail corridor. The easement location is shown in the image on the right. This property is mostly wooded and with nearby wetlands. Dakota County will also be acquiring a natural area easement on an adjacent 60 acres of the McMenomy's property that will then be purchased by the city of Rosemount for a city park. That 60 acres is not part of this acquisition, but will provide additional natural resource value and habitat protection along the trail corridor. The 5.7 acre trail easement was appraised at $235,000, and the landowner has agreed to an amount of $246,848. This amount is well within the allowed 110% limit. With a total acquisition cost of $250,480, the grant amount will be $187,860, and the Dakota County match will be $62,620. Our rationale for recommendation is that this acquisition is consistent with the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, the Parks and Trails Legacy Fund, the Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail Master Plan, and Dakota County is within its $1.7 million per fiscal year limit for the Parks and Trails Legacy Fund Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund. Our recommendation tonight is that the Metropolitan Council approve a grant of up to $187,860 to Dakota County to acquire a 5.72 acre easement on the McMenomy property located at 120th Street West in Rosemount for Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail. And thank you, and with that, I can take questions, and also Al Singer is here from Dakota County to take questions.
Great. Are there questions? Jeremy?
Thank you. I'm wondering what the Wickland Preserve is. Did you mention that? I just missed it.
I did not mention it.
Okay.
Al, do you know anything about that?
It's listed here just west of the parcel and looks like it would be the connecting component of the trail. But I'm not sure who owns it.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Al Singer. I'm the Land Conservation Manager for Dakota County, and we worked with the city of Rosemont to purchase the Wickland Preserve back in 2006. And it actually is not where the Greenway is going to be located. The Greenway is scheduled to be located to the parcel to the south. And it just happens to be that that parcel is the location for a new pub in the city of Rosemont. And so at some point in time, people can ride their bikes or walk to the pub as part of it. And I would also note that there is a note from the map that there was a area between the two portions of the property. We just went to the county board to seek approval to acquire that portion under the same sort of arrangement. So it will be united in the same fashion, so there'll be an 80-acre protected open space area with the city of Rosemont owning fee title, and the county would have the Greenway easement and a natural area easement as part of this entire complex.
That's great.
Madam Chair, I don't quite understand why you're acquiring an easement rather than ownership of the property. Can you help me with
That was
that?
my question.
Everyone's taking questions.
Sure, so what we have agreed to do, and we have another model of this with another property in the city of Rosemont, is that the city had long identified this as a city park for almost 20 years. And so we're trying to do partnerships where the city is interested in putting local non-paved trails as part of the park. That would be a city responsibility, it wouldn't be a county responsibility. So we're trying to make sure that the larger area is protected, that most of the area is going to be protected as natural habitat. That's what the easement does. We thought that just made the most sense as we're trying to collaborate with the cities. The county has a role in this, but we also think some of the responsibility lies with the city, and so that the city is kicking in $392,000 toward this acquisition as well, and so that was another reason for doing it that in this way.
That's great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? In that case, might there be a motion for the recommended action?
I'll make the motion that the Metropolitan Council approve a grant of up to $187,860 to Dakota County to acquire a 5.72 acre easement on the McMenomy property located at 120th Street West in Rosemont for Vermillion Highlands Greenway Regional Trail.
And I will second.
Excellent. It's a motion by Commissioner Heichel, second by Commissioner Miller. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, once again, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Em.
No offense.
No ties.
Sorry.
And now we have a presentation about the 2021 visitor study. And Darcie Vandegrift is here to present. Wonderful.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners, Council Member. It's great to be back with you for the final installment of our discussion of the 2021 visitor study. And as you recall, we've talked about a lot of the findings from the study in terms of visitor satisfaction, preferred and popular activities, and then we've done a deep dive into demographics, including race, ethnicity, age, gender, and groups where someone had a disability. So So we're moving into sort of the final installment this evening, and I'm hoping to hear from you on two things, and I'm going to share two things with you. First of all, I'm going to share with you the results of, from the workshops this summer, so kind of taking a deep dive into what implementing agency staff, who are the experts about their system, what they had to say, so really sharing some of that feedback with you in depth. And then the other thing is the final data that I'd like to share with you is looking at what do new and infrequent visitors, some information about new and infrequent visitors, and then also about information seeking, which really dovetails nicely with what Anne was talking about at French Regional Park about new ways of communicating with visitors. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. Some of us have heard it 3 times. Some of us, it might be their first or second, and it's been a couple months at least. So the visitors survey is required by statute, and it helps inform policy planning and management, and also works to strengthen equitable usage of the regional parks and trails in accordance with our policy plan. It's required by statute because it helps us update the data for funding formulas. We talked about that way at the first one, person per vehicle, local and non-local visitation, and that helps us determine where our funding goes for parks and trails. And it is important to note that this only captures summer activities on the day of visit, so we don't know so much about what people like to do in the shoulder seasons or in the winter. And in the 2021 visitor survey, as you remember, the survey was administered by Wilder Research. We had over a 50% response rate and over 5,400 surveys, and we weighted the data. We did quotas proportionate to visitation, and then made sure that responses counted relevant to their proportion of visitation in the regional system. So there were at least 393 surveys per implementing agency, and then 1 unit in each implementing agency was oversampled, so there was enough that there would be some park and trail level data. And then the data were reviewed and analyzed by council staff. And so in terms of the process, again, we talked about this before, but we collected the data last summer. The consultant prepared the data in the fall. The funding inputs were the very first thing we did, and that was calculated in winter and spring. We did workshops with implementing agencies, and of course we came together and talked about the data as well. And the draft of the report is being reviewed by all of the people that need to review it, and is going to communications and will be published later this year. So this is where, as I said, I'd like to jump in a little bit with kind of reviewing. I already reviewed what we did so far, but I'm focusing on how implementing agency staff joined 5 workshops, scheduled lunch conversations to dive into the operations implications of these survey results. And that's some of the stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you here shortly. And so that's really what we're going to do, a wrap up of the implementing agency insights, as well as some information on new visitors. So let's turn to that implementing agency analysis. So this slide is very busy. I apologize, I was trying to get a lot on there. But across the top, you see some findings from the survey data, and these are things that you have already seen. And on the bottom, we're seeing some of the big key takeaways from implementing agency staff. So let's walk through some of those. So this is a statistic that you've seen before. 88% reported the facilities were very good or excellent. Higher satisfaction, visitor satisfaction on the day of visit in the suburbs and newer facilities, lower in systems with older facilities. And we had a really rich conversation about, what it means. We think about growing our system, but we also need to think about maintaining the system is the clear message that we got back. And so an important thing is, we can zoom in on what we need to do better, and of course we're going to do that, and we've done that, but we also, it's notable that people are happy and satisfied with the system generally, but that the public values well-maintained and high-quality facilities, and this requires investment. And this was a key message that implementing agency staff felt was an implication of the data. And then, I don't know if we've ever had the word unsexy on a slide to MPOSC before, but bathrooms are not a glamorous issue, but they're an equity issue. That when staff, when engagement is done, and Three Rivers actually shared some of this in the workshop, Minneapolis shared this, that new visitors who are parents, really talk about the importance of clean bathrooms and facilities, that this is unglamorous but super important. So let's move to that middle column. So the top desired improvements, visitors were asked, what's one thing that would improve our visit today, your visit today? And it was better trail conditions, improved maintenance, and again, there it is, bathroom availability and quality and access to drinking water. When we say water access, we're talking about drinking water. And so a key message again is that implementing agency colleagues told us that resources are the biggest thing, that operations funding is chronically underfunded. Statute says that we could add up to 40%, the council could add up to 40%, and the legislature adds only 8 to 9%. And that they feel like knowing about these maintenance concerns from the public are important to inform the conversation about sustainable funding. And then finally, in terms of talking about activities, it was interesting to note that all social groups, so whether we're talking across race and ethnicity, across age, across gender, that walking and hiking was the top activity, but other things like family events, family and friend meetups, playing sports and fishing were more popular among underserved racial and ethnic groups. And so we did a deep dive into a lot of differences in activity patterns, and you all saw those data, I think in our first conversation. And so here are some policy implications that they said in that bottom square on the right, that open and flexible spaces are key to offering, equitable opportunities. That we need to support spaces for doing nothing. Doing nothing and relaxing was a very high activity that people, high on the list of activities of what people do in the parks. And we need to, as we care about public health and mental health, that this was something that implementing agencies emphasizes is, how do we create spaces for doing nothing? And then also, how do we think about a continuum or scaffolding support for people who come to walk and want maybe, how do we present other opportunities for hiking and walking to people who come for this most popular activity in the system? And then we need to continue to expand efforts, and our colleagues, Jonathan Blaming and Anne, who I just met this evening, Rexine, thank you, spoke about, really taking the time to understand diverse users' needs, and that was echoed in the workshops as well. So with that summary, let's move into our final topic, which is looking at new visitors and information seeking. So here, what you have before you is a visualization showing the percentage of first-time, or we could also say infrequent visitors, and return visitors to parks versus trails, and whether they sought information before going to do their visit or not. And to me, this question, this emerged in the workshops, is extremely valuable to understand who is our audience for information about the system. And so 86% of people who said they were seeking information were new or infrequent visitors, which I thought that really came forward in the workshops as an important thing to think about in terms of audience. And then you also see, so in this question, did you seek information before visiting? First-time visitors, almost 60% of them visiting parks said they sought information. Over 40% who were visiting trails and first-time or infrequently said they were seeking information. And you just see generally that people going to parks are seeking information more before their visit than those who visit trails. So yeah.
Man,
Of course.
what was the context of that question? Because information seeking can take a lot of forms. Was that
Sure.
specified in the question?
It was, did you seek information before your visit today?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, again, it's just a snapshot of this one day, this one visit. Good question, thank you. So then we had two other questions that were talking about information seeking. What information would you find helpful in planning in your park or trail visit? And then where do you go to seek information? So let's unpack that first one first. What information did visitors say that they would find helpful? So the most frequent responses were, interestingly, one outside of the council and implementing agencies control largely smartphone maps. And only to not put a brand up there, Google Maps is what people say, smartphone maps. Activity guides was the second most frequent thing that people said they'd find helpful. And then nature features were the third thing, kind of features that were found in nature. So then remembering 86% of information seekers are new visitors. So we looked at what is it that new visitors said that they looked for more often than returning visitors. And this would not be a surprise to any of you. It was park hours, parking information, and park rules. How do you get oriented to a new space? And then I did share some differences across agencies. So activity guides were more popular than the mean answer for Anoka County, Carver County, Minneapolis, and Three Rivers Park District. Parking information was more often sought by Ramsey County and Minneapolis. That makes sense. Disability accommodations were more often sought by Park Board, Ramsey County, and St. Paul visitors, and maps were more often sought by Dakota County visitors. Okay, so then let's move to that second question. Where do visitors look for information? And we have a big table. There are about, I don't have it, 17 sources of information and broken down by implementing agencies that will be in the final report. So this is a big overview. And so where do you look for information? Smartphone maps, again, was the top one. The second most popular was family and friends. Again, that's a reputational topic. It's not something that's controlled by the council or controlled by implementing agencies. And then a specific park or trail website. Those were the most frequent responses. So we'll find out, we'll talk about that visitors of color were more often, or there are more visitors of color among new and infrequent visitors than there are among regular visitors. And so it's worth asking the question, what kinds of information sources do visitors of color are they more likely to consult? And that was family and friends, and then all of the social media answers. So you could answer Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and those other. So the other thing, and then again, looking at agencies, so smartphone maps were more often used by the Park Board, by Ramsey and St. Paul. Family and friends were popped up more frequently for visitors to the Park Board, to Minneapolis and St. Paul. A specific park or trail website and help desk was more often named by Washington County. And Instagram was more often named by Bloomington, Three Rivers, and Minneapolis. So here, I kind of stepped on the lead, or however you would say that here. I mentioned this on the previous slide, that new visitors are more likely to be non-white. They're more likely to seek information, and they're more likely to visit parks. And so here you see a slide that shows in red are the proportion of returning visitors who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And in green, you see the proportion of new and infrequent visitors who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And what you see across implementing agencies is, the green line, the bar, is much longer than the red bar. In other words, that that there are more people of color that are new and infrequent visitors across all implementing agencies than return visitors. And one interesting, I thought, insightful thing, that there was a lot of insightful comments that came from implementing agencies, but they said that there's a misperception that we only need to build the system and invest in growing the system, but good communication is what attracts people. We need to push this priority, and the council can support this through grant opportunities. Directors can support it through reviewing this data. So this was something that staff wanted to see, that implementing agency staff wanted to see elevated. So that's my presentation. So at this point, I would welcome any feedback, questions, comments about implementing agency workshop information, or about the data itself.
Terrific, thank you. Would it be easier if people went bullet by bullet, or just hit you with questions and comments?
Whatever is most useful to you, Chair.
Monica.
Thank you so much. It's always very interesting, this. I think it makes sense. Communication is very important. It's marketing. You can have the biggest, most amazing park, but if nobody knows it's there, nobody's ever gonna visit. And I recently went to Mexico, and I'm telling you this because it kind of makes sense once I was there. So you know how you have all these Hispanic people who live in concrete cities, and then they go out, and then on the weekends you're there in the first visitors.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually because it's part of the culture that we live. So you live where you can walk to the store, you can walk to the school, you live there, you don't have to move, you don't have to park, right? And then over the weekends we go out and have fun, and then you do nothing. So I think that's what we're seeing here, and I would like to know if at some point you're gonna address cultural traditions with, the visitors that are coming and are identify themselves as foreigners from the American cultures, per se, in a way. Because I think it's important if we really want to know what is going on. It's that's my perspective, and it's just me. I'm not by any means representing all the Latin community, but it's something that I think it will be very interesting. So that's one. And the other one, I think when you say the first visitors and the return visitors, the first thing that I read is like a lot of people go visit once and then just decide what park you like, and that's where you go and return. So I don't know if that was also, it could be mixed in there. I don't know. But anyway, I like that. Yes.
So, Chair, Councilmember Commissioners, thank you so much for those comments. To just turn to the second one first, I think you ask a good question is do people, we don't know about sort of people's visitation patterns over time. How many parks have you visited? Do you go to many? Do you go to to just this one? And we also don't know if this first time visitor will come back. So those are really good questions. And in terms of your first question, I agree with you. I think that we might call it really considering cultural traditions of different groups is incredibly important in research. It's also important in programming and we do have a couple of resources right now that are valuable. There was a study in 2014 about park visitation among communities of color that looks at some of those diving down into cultural traditions. And then in the youth and parks research, one of the partners was Outdoor Latino, and so we worked together to generate data about particularly Latino cultural practices. And one of your observations was observed by the organization as well, which is that Sunday leisure time of families spending time together and as you say, doing nothing or so that was reflected in the data. But it's extremely important to continue.
And I know it's a very, very heavy agenda, and it's a very, very sensitive topic to talk about it everywhere, because you don't want to offend anybody, you don't want to exclude anybody, but you also want to know about it. So I think, thank you.
But you need to push us to do it. I'm glad you do. So thank you. You do.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to offer that there are ways to work with smartphone maps, particularly the one that shall not be named, to make changes. I've done that with parks as a contributor, and so particularly we talked about our field trip visit. Todd and I both went to an old entrance instead of the real entrance because the smartphone map guided us to the wrong location, and so I was able to edit that, and I believe it's correct now from what I saw.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Jeremy.
And so there are ways to work with these organizations that are the trusted source for geospatial information for ordinary people. And I think it would be worthwhile to consider maybe taking an ownership approach of those data and perhaps making sure they're kept up to date with whatever circumstances exist, whether that falls on the implementing agencies or the unit itself or the Met Council. I think it'd be worth considering taking that resource very seriously and working to keep it as updated as possible so that people find the information when they're looking for it, where they're looking for it.
Yeah.
Chair and Commissioners, great comments, Jeremy. I want to know how you become a Google contributor. I haven't been invited yet, but
anyone can do it on the map. You just tell them they're wrong.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight a project that actually Tracy Kinney is leading for us, which is our GIS improvement project, working with the agencies. And some of our agencies have really pretty solid data, and others have less solid data. And we have a process going forward today where we're really working with all the agencies, comparing it to the existing park and trail plans we have on file. And we're identifying areas where we have errors, because there are errors, and we're slowly working through the entire system, and we're really looking at creating an annual submittal process so that these corrections can be made, and then we want to put this in the public domain so that companies can pick it up and use it so that visitors can find where they need to go, because that was a great example at Cottage Grove Ravine. Like, one of their great Parks and Trails legacy projects was reorienting the entrance, which was hard because it was coming right off of Highway 61, and now it's coming off of
19.
Keats?
Keats.
Keats, yeah. So it was a great improvement, and it wasn't captured, and a number of people were lost, including staff. So, great point, and I just wanted to let you know that we are working on that. So.
Wow.
To build on Jeremy's point, when we were visiting Elm Creek Park some years back, I had exactly the same problem, that I ended up in some tool shed someplace. And certainly has happened to me going to golf courses. I end up at the maintenance shack as opposed to the, So, yes, to your point, it's, if there's a vehicle for feedback that will improve those maps, that's great. But they are wonderful, and I know that both Carver and I believe Scott County stopped using their own park and trail maps and have kind of referred this back to Google Maps. So whatever kind of investment we can make or awareness investment we can make, we go back to the old story about awareness of these wonderful park systems we have as a reasonable expenditure of council money, that for us to spend all this money on trails and blacktop and not spend the money to tell people we have these, just as short-sighted in my judgment. So, working on something like maps and making that improvement and making it aware to people is a darn good idea.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emma, would that be something that the Legacy Fund would provide money for, even on a statewide basis? Although it occurred 27 years ago, I have vivid memories of us ending up in the wrong camping space, and it was my fault. But fortunately, I wasn't left there. But I think of it, and rather than just the regional parks and trails, this has got to be an issue for the state parks, the city parks, and it would make sense if we did it in a comprehensive sort of way to be visitor friendly to everybody in all instances.
Chair and council member and commissioners, it's a great point. We have used what is known as coordinating among partners money, which is about 1% off the top of the total Parks and Trails Legacy Fund. And that goes into a pool for doing shared research, as well as improvements to things like maps. There is a parks, state and regional parks and trails website that we did collectively. And it's really great. And it's online. Cecily, what's it called? Get Outdoors Minnesota, or I think. And it is really good, but the truth of it is that it's fallen into a little bit of it needs to be updated.
Yeah.
And updating it is expensive. So that's something that I think we should really think about. And the other thing that I was just thinking about based on the discussion, Darcie's presentation, and the comments to date is social media is something that we're underinvested in currently. And social media is hard. It's a real investment to be good at it. And that is one of the frontiers, I think, out there. So.
But in addition, so about a week ago, I was on a walk at Lake Elmo with Sandy Brower, who's the director of Washington County Parks. And we meet every couple months to go for a hike. So immediately she pulls out her phone and pulls up Avenza.
Yeah.
And it's great in Washington County Parks. I haven't tried it in some of the other implementing agencies. There's also All Trails. So there are some softwares that are available to anybody. They will need to download it. Well, I shouldn't say that. You should download it before you get to the park So you can have the maps ready and download them onto your phone. And maybe this kind of information should be more readily available for trail users. It's not gonna get you to the park, but once you're there, you know, you can plot out loops and back and forth or whatever, but.
Evenza?
Avenza, it's
Yeah.
an AVENZA.
Right.
It's more for power users who have what's called a GeoPDF. So it's got the geospatial information tagged in the metadata, and so it can be plotted by that application, and it overlays your GPS. So it takes a little more effort to do that. You can make your own maps for that, but you
True.
have to either acquire someone who's already produced this or make your own map for where you're going.
Right, but what I like about Avenza is the agencies update them themselves. When it's
Yes.
like all trails, it's any user updates,
Right.
and you never know what you're gonna get. So, but
Yeah.
anyhow, you know, that's another approach, you know, work with companies who do this as a business, or smart people who can do it themselves.
Well, the Forest Service does that with the
Oh.
National Forest System as
Oh,
well. They
okay.
have GeoPDFs available for the forest system trails.
GeoPDFs,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the other thing on the Google Maps deal is encouraging reviews. So since people are seeking information, when I wanna go to a new park, I ask my friends and family as well, you know, where they've been and where we should go for an adventure. And having those reviews on Google Maps or whatever resource they use to navigate will help them identify whether there are pitfalls or opportunities at any given place. And how busy it is, that sort of thing.
I would say, reviews on social media, I personally think you don't touch it, you just promote it. So if you have places where you can, you know, take an Instagram moment, or I don't remember what's the name, or where you can take a TikTok video. So the users of the park are the ones that are gonna spread the word, and then they are gonna spread the review. So you just put certain, okay, here is where you take the picture, because that's how our generation works now.
Yep.
So, and then at the same time you say, please leave a review for us. And then, of course, you're gonna have somebody who reads the reviews and answer when you get any complaints. But I think that's kind of how to go. Otherwise, if you try to go to social media and try to spread the word, it's gonna, I don't know, I find it very hard. Like, the city of Brooklyn Park has their social media, and I read it, but I don't have barely anything to follow, so I can't see it. If you have more than 10 friends, you're never gonna see the city, so that's my point there. And then, yeah, in Google, you should actually reach them and say, hey, can we sit down and talk because your information is a little off? We wanna send you the right addresses, and they might, who knows? Yeah, you never know. They probably want to be correct, so.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they do, that's great.
Yeah, and I'd be curious whether the implementing agencies have people dedicated to social media, or is it part of someone else's marketing communications job? Or we have one agency here that can tell us.
Sure. Yes, we have a robust social media program.
Okay.
And we also have a robust GIS program, and they have a relationship with Google to try to update it. Sorry about what happened in Elm Creek, though. I'm not sure what happened. The Metro GIS, I believe, is still housed out of the Met Council, and they are a geographic powerhouse. And I'm sure they have very strong relationships with all of the mapping interests out there. And if they were to aggressively pursue updating map information for parks and trails, I think they would be very successful.
Great, thank you. Well, I have a couple questions. Go ahead.
Chair, I was just gonna comment on Metro GIS is a part of the GIS improvement project, so you're right that I think that the word will get out, so.
Oh, no problem. One of your bullets said, what else would I like to know? Sure, please. So, there are two questions for you. So, you know, clearly, you know, you're talking with us, the implementing agencies, and of course, they talk to their communities and all of that. What about academia, futurists, NRPA, and Minnesota Park Association, all of that? What are we hearing from outside of the the metropolitan area in some of these situations with visitor use, and are they having, for example, are they having the same percentages of, lesser BIPAC visitation? What are other trends? That's kind of a question.
Chair, yes. So I would want the researchers that I am, before I would sort of definitively say this, I would want to sort of go back and review these things I have. So I can send you some of that. But the visitation patterns that we see in terms of race, ethnicity, and also in terms of age have been found also, for example, in the National Park Service. I would have to see, I did attend the National NRPA conference and presented some research there, and I went to all of the research panels, but I did not hear about kind of new findings in visitation. But what I have seen is that these patterns are not dissimilar. The new, if I may say, the thing that I'm really interested in this, and the other, actually, a rich resource we have that I'll give credit to our colleague Jonathan Blaming, is that there was, the 1998 and also the 2008 visitor studies. It's interesting to see the 2016 study methodology. We can't really compare. I've talked about that in previous, but looking at some of those earlier studies, we began to see, for example, the age disparities emerging in 1998. But it's worse now. And the gender disparity of on trails, to me, is one that I would like to do exactly what you suggested, Madam Chair, is go and see kind of nationally what we see around gender disparity in trail.
Okay, great. So that was one question. What are we hearing from other agencies, or what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
But another thing, and maybe I need to create this myself, but in the metro area, of course, there's city parks and state parks and national parks. And I am curious, and maybe more so in the suburban areas, maybe people aren't visiting the regional parks and trails because they have other choices.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be interesting to look at an overlay map and see, oh, well, in this area, our visitation is lower because, the state has a trail or there's state parks.
Mm.
Is there some kind of map that has the overlays of these other land managing agencies?
So, Madam Chair, that's a great point. That would be kind of a separate
Right.
separate research project, but it's a great question to
But
see
you
sort of
asked
what
what I
other
wanted to know.
no, I think that question you have of what other outdoor amenities are proximate to other, to different communities. Are there other, ways to understand? You asked that a couple sessions ago about age as well, and I think it's a really great question.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
I want to ignore, but the last question, what are the implications for our work as commissioners? That's, I guess, for us to know what we're doing now. Like, what's my homework? Is there anything that we are supposed to do or promote or that you expect us to be doing now?
Chair and Councilmember Commissioners, so it's not my role to say what you should do.
You can tell me.
And so I do appreciate the care with which you've looked at the data. I would ask that you look at both the results when the full report is published and also the comments from the implementing agency. To me, the richness lies in kind of what our colleagues from implementing agencies, there are policy recommendations there. There are investment implications there, and to me that would be something to kind of keep top of mind. But thank you for the question. It's really yours to answer.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, and the growth of the over 65 population group, it seems to me, as we look forward, is going to continue growing. And I notice in at least some of the spaces you showed under utilization by that group of people. And yet the need for that exercise and outdoors and so forth is certainly important for their health. because you're familiar with the data, are you seeing that underutilization by that population in a more general sense, or was that just kind of in a specific area that you saw that?
Chair and council member and commissioners, so the question of age and looking at those over 65 is important, but this is actually an insight. When we first started analyzing the data, we made age groups, so we could see the patterns more clearly. We did a pattern of 65 and older, and something actually that implementing agency colleagues pointed out is like we need to look at the data 65 to 74 and 75 and older, and actually the long-range plan that you saw from Three Rivers this evening with French did engagement with those over 75 because
75.
those who are 65 to 74 are actually overrepresented in park visitation relative to their proportion in the population. And we need to spend more time with this data looking at those over 75, and because of capacity, we haven't looked at everything, but I think you're raising a really important issue that looking at 75 and older is, in terms of what are needs, what are barriers, is a topic to consider.
Yeah, seems to me that would be important, having arrived there sometime back. Which leads me to my second question, which is kind of a broader question, and that is with the legacy money scheduled to run out in, what, 35? Is it
34.
34, 35. Has there been any effort made by policymakers, and soon this might be something in your realm, to begin working with the legislature to put together a program to ensure that it continues? Because it is such a masterful funding source for many important things. So it seems to me at some point we ought to be pushing on that.
Chair and commissioners and council member, great point, Bob and Monica. I just want to point out that what are the implications for your work as commissioners? I was going to say exactly what Darcie said, which is if you have connections with the state legislature or the federal, or you're on a funding commission, we do need to get the word out, because one of the things that when the Parks and Trails Legacy, when that act passed in like 2009 maybe, there was a really engaged legislature. They knew what was going on. This was something that had happened for years, and let me just say the vast majority of those legislators have now retired, and so especially coming into this legislative session, we're looking at a really new House and Senate in the state legislature, and so any efforts that you could make in helping educate them in terms of what you just said, Bob, the importance of that fund and how that fund has really made a significant difference in our system. It's been a tremendous impact for the good.
Madam Chair, I want to just piggyback a little bit. I think that, I'm glad you asked that question, Bob, because I think that addressing this now is kind of critical. As close to post-COVID as we can be. I don't know if we're post-COVID yet or not, but if we learned anything during COVID is that the outdoors is such an asset statewide, and it's what, kept a lot of families together, a lot of people together. I have good friends who repeatedly talk about how important their city parks and their regional parks and the trails, all of it was to them, and that it wasn't just PE for their kids, it was, mom and dad taking a break in the middle of the day and going for a walk and coming back smiling. And so I think we need to seize the moment and also seize the real commitment that a lot of our youth have to the outdoors. I have no doubt that it'll continue to be there, but post-COVID, I think it's really important to get them on board too.
And if I may, just as a follow-up, I would suggest that perhaps our division, mainly you, have the opportunity to help put together some factual talking points as to how meaningful this has been to us, and to give us some tools to work with our legislators and to have some factual points to talk about. So I would just ask that perhaps you guys take a lead role in that.
Chair and Commissioners, I would love to, and we are actually in the process of developing some just simple fact sheets
Yeah,
that I think would be really useful for, you, Bob, to walk in and just put it on someone's desk and say, can we talk for a minute about the Parks and Rec Legacy Fund? And so that's something that's really possible. I have to take a gratuitous moment because Councilmember Vento, in the height of the pandemic, I just have this really funny memory of what I call forced family fun at my house. When people were going crazy, my son was doing 100% online school. He was not succeeding. And I'm like, we're gonna go to a regional park today. And so we all got up and we went to French Regional Park. And I just have the best memory of getting there. In the parking lot, and it was like late November, so it was cold out. The parking lot was completely full, and people were in lawn chairs in the parking lot in big circles, spread out, just talking. They were drinking alcohol in some instances, but they were just having a great time, and I'm like, this is a public service, it was just a wonderful memory, so.
I know
And we had a
book
good
clubs,
hike.
I know of book clubs that met in parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did too.
Well, thank you for the report. And as it's an informational report, we don't have to have a motion of any kind. But I'm sure you all took a lot of notes, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now it's time for other reports. And as chair, I'll mention a couple things. I went to a commissioners conference just after our last meeting, and it was put on by Conservation Minnesota and TPL. And one reason I bring it up, Trust for Public Land, of course, is very supportive of cities, counties, and agencies all around the country when they go to the ballot box. They work, with cities on geo bonds and sales tax and property tax, and their goal is to have an annual conference for commissioners of all different kinds, at the city and county level, and what issues we have and what kind of training we need. And I met with Avery Hildebrand after and said, I'd love to work with you on this. And I mentioned previously that I hiked recently with Sandy Brower at Lake Elmo and used the events at Trail app. Any other committee member reports? Jeremy?
I had a chance to visit with our friends in Anoka County just this week.
Great.
Got to see their county parks meeting with their two commissioners, and it was really nice. We went to Bunker Hill Stables and got to hang out there for a bit. So it was a good meeting. We got some interesting plans coming our way, and they're very excited about our policy plan, including more information about water trails going forward.
Very good.
I get the information from Three Rivers Park, so we're gonna train dogs sledding, which I wish I could take my dog, but she needs a miracle. So, she does, that's the truth. There are also a lot of pretty cool family activities coming up, and I'm just worried about the possibility of lack of snow this year, but yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. Yes, but thank you. There are great things coming. Yeah.
Great. Do you have a?
Nothing, no.
Okay. Council liaison, do you have a report for us?
I have nothing to report other than that I think it's quite remarkable that I've been serving here as an ex-official member, and I haven't tried to make or pass or make, second, or vote on a motion. I have been known to forget things like that and really screw up, so I just wanted to pat myself on the back.
We enjoy it.
Thank you, and I have one other important item to share for the men in the room. Today is National Men Make Dinner Day, and according to what I'm reading about it, it says that you must cook and no barbecue is allowed. And if you have extra time and wanna plan ahead, November 15th is National, where is it? Clean out your refrigerator day. It doesn't say it has to be done by men, but you could get 2 things done today if you really wanna. Yeah. So I just thought I'd share that, it's really,
Well, thank you.
yeah, very valuable information, and please don't make it a part of the minutes.
Excellent.
We'll see how that goes.
Staff reports.
Chair, I have one report, and it is reminding commissioners, and I know everyone's kind of on top of this, that the terms for Cecily, Jeremy, Anthony, and Todd are expiring at the end of this year. We, of course, ask you to serve until things are filled, but we're hoping that you'll consider reapplying. So I just wanted to say that. I also wanted to, I said this in my email this morning to all of you, is Asada Brown in District D needed to resign from the commission. And so the Secretary of State's office has already posted all these positions, so they're open. And I think that the closing date, and it doesn't say this on the posting, but I think it's December 8th. And so please get yours in, your applications in before December 8th. If you need your old application, I can send it to you, just to give you a little reminder in terms of how you answered the questions the first time. It's a very similar application, happy to send it. I just want to reiterate one thing that we don't say enough is just how much we rely on you for the regional parks and trails work. And so thank you for being here and considering reapplying. That's all I got.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. I don't remember, do we need a motion to adjourn? No. Okay. Thank you, everybody, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, use the game.